Public Works Department and DISCOM, and having over 27 years experience in energy efficiency and cleaner technologies. He was instrumental in setting up institutional framework of ESCERT trading under PAT scheme of BEE. His research interests include power quality, energy efficiency, and ESCO financing. Now, I would like to call Mr. Girija Shankar to brief us on his today's topic, energy efficiency and renewable energy financial models for universities, higher educational institutes.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. Thanks a lot for the IIT Guwahati and the TERE Foundation provide this opportunity. ESL has partnership with the Green TERE Foundation, and we are working on this U75 project, and we have completed this is the 4th regional workshop, and apart from this regional workshop, ESL and GTF has done many activities and the collaborative partnership meetings where we want to establish this U75, how the U75 program can be taken up and what are the benefits these are to be accrued by the universities and as well as the other organizations. So you may be aware in the morning Honorable MP Javadekar Sahab has mentioned about this LED program. So ESL is the part of that initiative, and it is the ESL who has done this bulk procurement model, and the success of bulk procurement model we have demonstrated in the other programs also. So I want to highlight how the partnership with the various organizations can result in the large-scale deployment of the technology. So you may be aware that the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is working on the policy front. ESL under the Ministry of Power, we are working on the market front, how the market can be created for the energy efficient technology. And my presentation will take care about primarily how the partnership will provide opportunity to various stakeholders when they are going to do the large-scale deployment program. So this is the just brief gist about the ESL. So ESL is the joint venture created by the 4 CPSUs under the Ministry of Power, and we are working on the energy efficiency front only. These are the programs which the ESL has created the market. So one story of the Ujala, another we have the Street Light National Program where we have covered almost all state urban local bodies. The LED has been replaced with the conventional street lights, and now we are in the year of 4th or 5th years of the operation and maintenance of those activities. Similarly, ESL is also working on the renewable part as well as the mobility part. So ESL is the first company, and it is only just because of the pursuance from the Ministry of Power that we have to create the infra for the e-mobility. We have installed around more than 500 charging facility. We also deployed around 2,000 four-wheeler, these electric cars. Currently, we have done the bulk procurement of around 10,000 buses for the various smart cities, and we are working with the various stakeholders. In the similar manner, we want that this U75 project will also maybe collaborated with the all university partners, where the university may be the, I think, the technology seekers or the solution provider. There may be the other, you may be heard about, there is a model ESCO, Energy Service Company. So energy service companies are providing the value-added service where the financing as well as the technical services will be given, and the repayment will be ensured through the what the energy savings or the opportunity of the cost saving occurred in the organization premises. Why this net zero path is maybe necessary for all of us. So I think that in the previous inaugural session, given the importance, but when you are going or decide the net zero path, you have to first identify where the carbon are occurring. So based on the few studies, I think this slides gives the which sector which are more responsible for the carbon, and if the India is achieving this net zero pathway by 2070 or the 2050, we have to address those sectors. What sort of the sectors, intervention, technological, financial, others needs to be taken care. So primarily if we see, the major sector is the industry and the power is the major one. So if we consider the electricity reduction, then we can able to achieve the net zero pathway. There may be the other form of energy also in most of the sectors, but the electricity is the major one. And here you can see the cement and the other steel sector, they are the major sector where the this carbon footprint is larger one. And in order to achieve the net zero path, all those sectors needs to be provided, flooded with the technology innovation, flooded with the solutions, flooded with maybe the different way of alternate energy. And it will provide a very good opportunity for the all technology. I think the IIT human resource is one of the best human resource in the India, and IIT can play a major role. Your roles, the students, faculty, is very, very important to decide this pathway for the net zero. And in earlier session, Prakash Javadekar Sahab has mentioned that energy efficiency is the key area by which we can able to reduce down our carbon footprint. So if you see, this slide gives the what the content of the current maybe in the terms of, and how this the current carbon footprint can be reduced down with the interventions of the energy efficiency and the clean energy. These are the two major areas, and we can see that around 40% contribution may be coming from the energy efficiency. Energy efficiency requires the technology solution. It requires maybe the way of the operations, how the operations can be handled so that the wastage of energy can be reduced down. So energy efficiency is the, I think, bottommost pillar, and if the energy efficiency will be achieved in the campus, in the industry, then the integration of the renewable energy or the other alternative source of energy will be very, very viable. So it should be the first step that we have to cut down the energy requirement by using the energy efficiency or integrating the energy efficiency solutions. Second, the integration of the renewable and the alternate energy, which can be compensate the net zero requirement. So net zero is not that the energy is going to be zero. It is only that it will be balanced out. Whatever the total energy requirement and what the total energy or alternative energy available, if both can be balanced out, then we can able to achieve the net zero. And mostly this net zero is also known as a near zero. So it is not that the zero is going to be operation, but this net zero is the pathway on which the ESL and the GTF are working with the various universities, and we are collaborating the different sort of the partners. You may also heard about this LIFE, I think the mission LIFE, what the government of India has held out. So there are the two schemes where this carbon market are part of that, and it will also provide a financial opportunity for all those who are integrating the energy efficiency and reducing their energy consumption. So currently the Bureau of Energy Efficiency had this PAT scheme. So now this PAT scheme, earlier it was the targets are given in terms of the energy saving. Now those targets are converting in the carbon. So what the carbon saving will occur, those can be provided with some sort of the carbon emission certificate, and these emission certificate will be tradable. So it can be similar to I think our exchange currently operating in the share market. So similar way, these energy saving certificate will be traded. Also, the mission life will have some form of the linkage. So they are also providing the green certificates, and those certificates have the relevance in the carbon market. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency and MOFCC are working on it. They are developing what sort of the institutional mechanism and the regulatory mechanism is required. But in the coming years, this may be a good opportunity for all those solution providers who are able to reduce down the energy consumption and taken this emission certificate in their balance sheet. We have a very long association with the Green Terra Foundation, and the prime objective that we have to make the campus as a net zero pathway. So ESL will provide the technological and maybe the financial support for the intervention which needs to be taken care. As earlier speakers have mentioned that the youth is the strength, and the IIT can play a role. Also, educational institutes can play a role because they have the large human resource, and this human resource can provide a good support in terms of maybe whether it may be the diagnostic study of the opportunities, whether it may be the technology intervention, and some sort of the other large scale some sort of the instrument which is needed for the large scale deployment of the technology. These slides give you also where the energy intervention or the carbon intervention make the value proposition. So you can see here the commercial, the industrial, and I think the commercial, where the graph shows that it will provide a good opportunity because it makes a commercial sense. Most of the commercial entity have the operations where the energy related to the cooling is major one. Also in the industry where the operations or operating hours are larger one, that make the sense of the opportunity. So if the energy consumption is reduced down, it will enhance the productivity of the industrial units. These are the key identified areas where ESL can make a partnership with I think the IITs, the other organizations. So you can see first maybe the lighting. Most of the IIT and the universities, they have already reached out the achievement conversion in the old with the LED. But there are also opportunity for sensor-based lighting or integrating the lighting with maybe the daylighting. So these sort of the requirement or the technological solutions can be integrated. Second, the major area is the cooling. So in the cooling, we can say, being India is a tropical country, the ventilation fan is also consuming a large amount of energy. So in the day, in the hostels, in the entire 12 hours operations, you can consider there is a good opportunity where the savings can be taken care from the ventilation part. ESL has just recently concluded one tender of 2 million ceiling fan, and these are based on the BLDC technology. So if you can see that the current conventional fan, they are consuming around 70 watt. If they are not older than more than 5 years old. If they are older than 5 years, then maybe 300 watts they may be using. So the BLDC will provide that the 5-star rated fan, which the recently made mandatory by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, they have this power requirement of 28 to 32 watt. So it will drastically reduce the power of consumption of the fans, and with this bulk procurement, for which the ESL is maybe known, so we have reduced down the cost. Currently in the BLDC fans are not available less than the 3,000, but we are coming out about maybe 1/3 reduction in that cost, and with, maybe in the next 1 month we may provide this opportunity. So these may be available on the e-marketplace. So similar to the GEM portal, ESL also have developed this e-marketplace, and any industry or any client can take, but our products are only energy efficiency product, and which are mostly the super efficient, not a, I think, mid-level. In the similar manner, we are also having the solution for the cooling. So the air conditioners which the ESL has in our basket, they are more beyond or the higher version of the 5-star rated super efficient air conditioners. The ISCR values of those, these are the data related what the intervention we have done. Around 10,000 commercial space, the government public buildings, we have already retrofitted the lighting, ventilation and air conditioning solutions. So this is air conditioning related. So we are coming up with the third version of the bulk procurement of around 20,000 super efficient air conditioner. And these super efficient air conditioner have the ICR value of 5.8 for the 1.5 TR split air conditioner, and 6.2 ICR value for the 1 ton split air conditioners. So these have the capability of around 20 to 25% energy reduction capability if you compare the 4-star or maybe the bottom threshold of the 5-star. And these air conditioners are fitted with or using the refrigerant which has the zero ozone depletion the potential, and also have a global warming potential less than the 700 value. So ESL is also promoting the refrigerant based solution which are environmentally friendly refrigerant and having a very lesser impact on the global warming. We also have one project. It is the Asia Low Carbon Building Transition. Under this Asia Low Carbon Building Transitions, we have that what sort of the material are used in the buildings and what sort of the impact they have or the carbon they have associated. So we are coming up with some form of the tool. The HEAT, which is the partner in this project, they are providing this tool, and we are going to pilot this tool in around 1,000 buildings. So we will map what sort of the carbon associated with the building construction material and the operations. Once you map or maybe document your baseline, then you can able to reduce down the carbon footprint. And we are providing in this project, this is a multi-country project and the 5-year project. 3 states currently we have identified, but we can also may provide support for the other states also. Recently in the month we have signed MOU with the IIT Bhubaneswar Research and Entrepreneurship Park. So ESL is working on the partnership. We are not the maker or manufacturer of any technology, but we can provide access to the technology solution provider and also access to the technology seeking organizations, the clients. So here we are working with the IIT Bhubaneswar Research Park for whatever the product which comes from the research park, we will provide access to the market, and we can able to create a commercialization of those technology or those ideas. In the similar manner, what are the industry, I think the challenge are facing. So we can provide the access of those challenges to the research park. So they can maybe come out with the new innovative ideas or no innovative solutions. We are working with different IITs. I am also requesting we can have the similar arrangement with the IIT Guwahati. So if there is a need of commercialization of your idea or your product, ESL can maybe provide a support. And if you also see what are the industry challenges, so we have the gist of the industry challenge and we can pass on to, and your human resource can come out with some innovative solution which may be useful for the industry and can able to abate those challenges. We are also working with the IIT Madras, so they are associated and creating this industrial energy IAC centers. So currently they have established the 7 centers. They are also associating with the other. So IIT Guwahati is part of this initiative. I think your Professor Prakash ji is associated with this activity. So we can also see where the industry can be benefited with these IAC centers. IAC center will provide maybe some technical support, maybe the technological support, and ESL is working on all of the IITs. This initiative is initiated by the CSR initiative of the Kotak Mahindra, and they are providing support for the few pilots, but ESL is working to maybe upscale those ideas and the technological solutions which may be replicable and maybe scalable for the industrials. This is the one I think we have just jotted down what sort of the intervention may be required in a campus. So one may be the utility based, whether it may be the lighting, your fans, air conditioners. Second may be the renewable, the other alternative forms of the energy. In the morning sessions, the biomass, the solar PV, all those has been narrated. So those sort of the solution can also be commercialized and can be provided to the campuses. The third one is the e-mobility. Because mostly universities have the buses and the cars, and this may be very, very value propositions. We are only aggregating the demands. We are going for the bulk procurement, and whatever the cost effective rates or the offers we have got from the industry, we will pass on to the clients. So it is a very viable business model by which ESL can make through this University 75 program, we can reach out and we can create the infra for this one, whatever the support is required. There is also a one Aditi platform. It is created by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, where the financial solutions can be taken care. So they have empaneled around 22 institutions, the financial institutions. So banks are available. They also have the list of the technologies, around 200 technology list already there, and any client who want to get the financing, they can just register, provide their request. The request will float it to the all financial institution, then every financial institution will provide an offer, and which one is better, you can just take the opportunity and maybe conclude those financial propositions. So in similar manner, we are also working with the technology. So technology solutions, the empanel vendors will be there and they will provide a better offer, and on the standard technology, ESL will go for the bulk procurement and will provide the solution. So I'm not going nitty-gritties how this net zero pathway can be rolled out. Just we have pointed out maybe the process and by which we can have the partnership with the different universities. And this University 75, I think the Smart Cloud Network SCCN developed by the GTF may provide a good opportunity to making a net zero pathway for each of universities. So I am just concluding, and thanks for the listening. If have any queries, I can able to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next speaker of the technical session is Mr. Kanagraj Ganeshan, UNDP expert on carbon neutrality and an alumni of IIT Madras. Mr. Kanagraj Ganeshan is the founder, Interactive Design Solution Private Limited, and has expertise in the area of building energy, efficiency, climate neutral, built environment, and cooling sectors. He is a postgraduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, in the Building Energy Efficiency domain. His topic of speech is on management of carbon neutral campus, scope, scale, and speed. I request you, sir, to please brief us on your topic.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction, and thank you to Green Terre Foundation and IIT Guwahati for inviting me. So my task has been made simpler by the earlier speakers, but I have a tough time in terms of I'm standing in between you and lunch. So how I'm going to talk about is, first I will talk about, people have talked about why we need to look at net zero. I will talk about like how we can implement net zero. And in the second half of my presentation post lunch, I will talk about how digitalization can basically support us to monitor the net zero movement. So when we talk about net zero, we need to understand like what net zero means. So net zero basically consists of two words, net and zero. So when we talk about net, what we are going to look at, what kind of time frame we are looking at, whether we want to be net in terms of daily, monthly, yearly. So we need to look at that. We need to understand what spatial boundary we are talking about, whether we want this conference room to be net, or whether we want our buildings to be net, or the whole campus to be net, or the city to be net, or the country to be net. Then we will talk about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. So I have a particular slide. So the carbon emission which we measure, so we need to understand whether we are net in terms of scope 1 emission, scope 2 emission, or scope 3 emissions. And then we also need to look at whether we are trying to do it with the mitigation method. That means we are looking at energy efficiency solutions, or we are trying to use clean technology like renewable energy technology. The other term is called zero. So whether we are net zero in terms of energy, whether we are net zero in terms of water consumption, whether we are net zero on waste, or whether we are net zero on carbon emission. So what do you think, what we are talking today? What is the net zero for us today? Carbon emissions, right? So let's look at like how we can do it. So this is a method through which basically the emissions of a built environment is defined. So we talk about scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 emission, if you look at it, these are the emission which actually happens in the site. So the energy which we consume in our labs and the building, the direct electricity if we are producing in a building through, let's say, diesel generator or gas generators, university vehicles, the vehicles which ply inside the university, and also the construction of the university. So there might be some new buildings which might be getting constructed. So what are the emissions which are going to come up from the construction of the new buildings? Scope 2 emission is only one. It is basically the energy which is generated in the power plant outside, and then basically it is used in your campus. So that is called scope 2 emission, and we look at like how better our power plants are, whether we are buying renewable energy. Sir talked about that 60% of the energy is going to come from renewable energy. So all that will be the scope 2 emissions. And on the scope 3 emission, we can have upstream activities and we can have downstream activities. So upstream activities are like if you are bringing material from outside to construct, all those things, or you have any other buildings which is the property of IIT Guwahati which you are leasing outside, all those emissions connected are basically looking at the upstream activities. And downstream activities is if, let's say, your professors and students are traveling outside through flight, through train, through cars and other things, or if there is something which innovation which is getting done in the university and it is going into the market and then it is basically emitting some kind of emissions. So all that thing is basically looked at as downstream emission. So scope 1 emission and scope 2 emissions are very simple to do. Scope 3 emission is something which basically one has to look at. In the earlier session when the UNESCO chief was speaking, he talked about an initiative which is called Greening the Blue. Okay, so the emblem of United Nations is blue, and they have a mission to green the blue. Okay, and this is started by United Nations Environmental Program, And what they have done is they have started with the measurement. So the first step to do any kind of thing is to start measuring what your emissions are. So they looked at their emissions. So overall, all the UN organizations basically consumes 1.2 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And then they look at like per person how much ton the whole organization consumes, which is equivalent to 4 tons. And these are like so many people, and there are 53 UN entities which are basically part of this mission. And here again, you can see that air travel actually is let's say 20-25% of the total emissions. The bigger emission actually comes from the scope 1 and scope 2, which is the emission which is happening in the building facility. And the rest is like the other percentage. So within UN 53 entities, there is something called UN Secretariat. So for UN Secretariat, there are 17 entities out of 53. They again found out like how much emission they are basically consuming every year. Each organization, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions divided by its number of people basically give you a kind of performance of each of the emissions. And that basically sets the kind of a baseline, and then we try to see how we can basically move from, let's say, 4 ton or 6 ton to, let's say, 0 ton kind of a situation for the net zero carbon emission, right? This is just to show you an example. So in net zero approach for a university, we need to basically look at a system thinking approach. So we cannot say that, okay, I want to just make this auditorium as net zero or one particular building as net zero, right? These buildings together, we have to see like whether we can make them net zero. Can we only stick to the building part of it, or shall we look at the transportation part of it? So we need to look at the system thinking approach. Data-centric approach is something which I will talk about later in the second half, which is basically monitoring and then putting a lot of analytics to it. And finally, we need to use key performance indicators. So what is key performance indicators? We all would have seen this advertisement of car, right? Kitna deti hai? Kilometers per liter, right? So there is something on the numerator and there is something on the denominator, okay? So in terms of building, if we have to compare the buildings, we use a term which is called energy performance index. So let's say if I have to calculate an energy performance index of this room, I will find out how many kilowatt hour this room consumes in a year and divide it by the area of the room, right? So I get kilowatt hour per meter square per year. So that's how I can compare various buildings, and I can say today I am at so many kilowatt hour per meter square and I want to reduce it by so much. Another metric which we use for university is per student, right? Finally, the main purpose of the university is students. So we find out how many kilowatt hours basically per student we consume. So when we make the implementation plan, we need to look at energy, water, and other SDGs components together. We need to develop the roadmap for it. We need to define the baseline using digitalization. Then we need to implement the strategies and go for piloting. So these are the two projects which we did, where we developed a kind of a roadmap for 2 university projects. The idea is, like when we talk about carbon emissions, we are mainly considering 4 types of emission. One is the emissions which is because of the embodied carbon. That means whatever materials which are getting used in making that campus work, we look at what is the energy which goes into making those products. So whether it is brick, whether it is cement and other things, we look at that and we call it as embodied carbon. The second carbon is basically when you are operating the building, how much energy you are consuming, and converting that into emissions is the operational carbon. The third carbon which we look at is basically called transportation carbon. So people used to commute in and out of the campus and within the campus. So that is the transportation related thing. And the fourth component is a negative component, which we say that carbon offset, which is because of the renewable energy, the forestry you have in your campus, all that becomes a carbon sink. So with this, we measure what is positive, what is negative, and in the year level, we basically find out what is the net, right? So we do this kind of a thing, and then the main idea is to make a roadmap. Today, I cannot be net zero, but I need to have, let's say, a roadmap for next 20 years, how I can become net zero. So this is how the process goes like. First, we need to do the basic assessment to define the baseline. Then with students and the faculty member, we analyze and define what are the strategies which are very particular to that campus so that we can put up some decarbonization roadmap over a period of time. And then the whole transformation process where we start implementing that roadmap. Finally, we will also look at some kind of a ranking kind of a thing. And whatever is the good practices which comes out of that, we have to really disseminate it to the larger public so that one campus does not become net zero. It is like a whole galaxy of campuses become net zero. So first step in this whole thing is energy and environmental audit. And it is very simple. It is also a part of your NAC submission. Those people who are into the administrative process of university know this better. So criteria 7 talks about doing a green audit. So it looks at not only energy, water, waste, everything gets accounted here. And as we know that it is not only energy centric, right? We need to also talk about what is the governance system, how better the planning of the campuses are, how the mobility is defined. Very big part of the whole campus is to look at how the food products arrive, what kind of innovation happens, whether the buildings are smart enough, and whether we are looking into the environmental parameters or not. This I already talked about. On the quantification side, we are going to look at what is basically goes into the construction, embodied carbon part of it, operational carbon of it, and the mobility carbon of it. And towards the end, we get a kind of this kind of a matrix where we can say that, okay, for energy, water, waste, mobility, how much, let's say for energy, how much kilowatt hour per meter square per year my university is consuming, or how many kilowatt hour per person or per student I'm consuming. Similarly, I can look at water as kiloliter per student. So if it is hostel per student, and how much it is for the whole university. All that thing we can find out for the waste, also kg of waste, solid waste, which we generate. And once we have these kind of baseline defined, we can make a roadmap saying that, okay, implementing these strategies will further reduce my emissions. And these are the kind of table which we make where we define the strategies. We should say that what is the short-term, mid-term, and long-term goal, 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or more than 10 years. We can define it project to project. But the idea is like to have this kind of a roadmap, and we also clearly put what is the responsibility of each organizations. I have 2-3 minutes more, or we have to close it. I can do it in the next one. Okay, so rest of the thing I will take in the next part. So maybe we conclude because we are closer to the lunch. And thank you. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer. All good. Not directly. So we are part of Green Terrace Foundation. So under the university program, we are looking at various universities who would like to get this kind of a support. And then we try to see like how we can rally the whole thing. So it can be consulting it. Yes. So any organization is fine. The only thing is you have to follow the roadmap, and you have to involve students and the faculty to do this, because the main idea is they become the ambassador of this whole thing or the possessor of the whole concept. So that's how we basically see it. So we would be happy to collaborate in any terms, whether it is direct ones or whether connected to your consulting organizations, to really see where the sweet points are.
Thank you, sir. The question and answer session we will have at the end of the program. So with this, the pre-lunch session of the program has come to an end. I request all of you to proceed for lunch, which has been arranged in the adjacent lounge. The post-lunch session will start at 3 o'clock. Thank you.